Now I'm delighted to welcome Paul Delahunty, Chief Security Officer with Stryve, to Clare Means Business. Paul is one of the country's top security experts, having worked with a number of security startups, including Ericsson and Hostel World. I suppose we're all very familiar with the cyber attack on the HSE systems and what an effect that's had over the last number of days. But Paul, for smaller businesses across Clare, SMEs who might be listening to this, how can they protect themselves against this kind of hack, particularly with what would be significantly smaller resources?
Yeah, and I think you've hit on a great point there, Josh, as well, because it's very easy for us to look at companies the size, well, organizations, I suppose, in the HSE's case, but there's plenty of companies that are very, very big and multinational companies that have fallen victim to this type of attack. And if you're a small business, you're looking at that, you're going, look at the resources they have, and they still fall victim to this. So it's very easy for a small business to get disheartened. I suppose the first thing that any small business can do is you have to really kind of know, well, what assets do I have? And when I use the word asset, an asset is anything that's of value to you or your business. So some business that will physically be the equipment, like the laptops or the servers or whatever. But more often than not, that could be the data that you hold as well. Maybe it's a list of customer and client data. Maybe it's the secret sauce in whatever your service, your product is. Maybe it's bank details, something like that. And you need to know exactly what you have and where you have it. And that's the first step. Because once you know that, and once you can kind of classify off, look, which data here now is critical to my survival, which data that if I lost this, or which asset that if it was under threat, that I'd have a real problem in continuing my business. And then you can delve further into, right, okay, how do I mitigate against damage to those assets? I suppose that the next and one of the more straightforward steps that everyone could do before you even get into technology is the people side of it.
Yes.
So that's, it's often cited as, people are the weak point in a defense, the employees, but I like to twist that in its head. And I can say, well, actually, it can be the weak side. It can be that soft underbelly, but if you do things properly, they can actually be one of the strongest parts of your defense. Because if you have what I call a cybersecurity culture in your organization, if everybody's thinking with security in the back of their minds and everything they do and how they act, then that's actually an incredibly strong tool in the fight against cybercrime.
Absolutely. I suppose the first thing that might come to a small business owner that's listening to this and his or her mind might be, well, if you're talking about personnel and you're talking about extra security, especially in the context of the year that most businesses have just gone through, that's going to be a significant outlay and a significant cost for them to bear and to deal with.
It doesn't have to be though, because you don't have to to get a real cybersecurity culture in your organization. You don't have to outlay thousands and thousands of euro on fancy courses. But it does need to be led from the top. So the CEO, CFO, CTO, whoever the business leaders are in your business, they need to buy into it. Yes. And it can be as simple as, from the day somebody starts, whether it's a very, very senior person or a junior person, somebody straight in from college, you implant in them that to our company, cybersecurity is very important. It's regardless of what you're producing or what your service is or what your product is, cybersecurity to us is important, because if you do not take it seriously enough, it may result in a business-ending event. I think therefore it needs to be important to you. If that's the message and the culture that you want to get across. Sorry, Josh.
No, you're okay. I suppose the point that I was going to ask you really is that do you feel like business owners, and I'm aware that you've worked with a number of large businesses yourself in this area, that they see IT as an ongoing and developing issue? I suppose the reason I ask that is somebody, for example, might say, right, I'll employ a head of IT. I'll bring in a suite of security, and that's grand, and that's me sorted for however many years. Whereas the reality is that it's far from it. I mean, this is developing every day, almost every hour, with as fast as technology is developing, really.
Yeah, you've hit a great point there, and I suppose, look, I've worked for a number of blue chip bigger companies, but I've also been involved in a number of startups as well. So I can see it from both sides. Um, but I suppose one thing just to pick up on something you said there, that right, absolutely, it's not a case of right, I've put in somebody in charge of IT there, we've put in a couple of technical solutions, that's it, lovely, job done. It's evolving the whole time. It's an active process. It's not a case of fix it and it's done forever. You actively need to tend to it the whole time. Much like a child, you don't feed them once in the morning. Go, that's it. They're reared.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
need
of
to
course.
keep them well throughout their lives, right? So the other thing, though, just to pick up on it as well, is that that's another attitude some people have, is that when they think of cybersecurity, they think IT. And that can be a very dangerous place to sit, because it's not the job of IT to ensure you're cyber secure.
Yeah, what's
Yes,
the
the
difference?
technology part is.
Because people, I've seen the HSE, let's go back to the HSE issue for just a second, that some places it's branded an IT attack, others it's a cyber attack, other places it's a ransomware attack, whereas I just might get you to outline and explain the differences between all of those, that they're not necessarily interchangeable phrases.
Yeah, they're all pretty much related. And I suppose just the point I was making is that if you want to be truly cyber secure, you can't just leave it up to IT. The whole company has to have that frame of mind. So that was where I was going with that. But I suppose when ransomware is just one type of cyber attack, which is essentially an IT attack. Cyber is just a fancy word. Okay, so all ransomware does is it's a type of attack where it takes your data and it encrypts it. So it muddles it up, basically. And the only way to unmuddle it is with a key that the hackers or the criminals have. So basically, they deny you access to your data.
Yes.
And that's the killer point. So one of the absolute defenses that any company should have as well is secure backups and reliable backups. Because if you think about it, they're denying you access to your data, but if you have another way to get that data, then you take away the power from the people who are performing the criminals, let's call them what they are, the criminals who are performing the ransomware attacks on your business.
Very much food for thought. Paul Delahunty, thanks very much for joining us on Clare Means Business.
Great, thanks, Josh.
Yeah, Paul is Chief Security Officer with Stryve, and that's very much something to bear in mind if you are a business owner that need to be very much cyber conscious. Certainly we're in a world now where IT systems and cyber security has to be a very big priority, really, for any trading business that stores any sort of data at all. That brings to a close this week's episode of Clare Means Business. We'll be keeping a close eye on the reopening of the economy and indeed the fallout for the region from that Aer Lingus decision to permanently close its Shannon Airport base in the coming weeks, so do keep an eye out for that. In the meantime though, bye for now, stay safe over the next few days, and we'll speak to you next week.
You've been listening to an exclusive Clare FM podcast presented by Josh Prenderville. Log on each week to hear Clare Means Business.